Welcome back to Accrued Interest. Today, March 14th, 2025, I'm not going to do a formal pitch, but I'm going to walk you through why I think now is a good time to add the stock of Nintendo Corporation to your watch list. Before I go any further, as always, everything said on this podcast is for entertainment purposes, as I am not a registered investment advisor. At the time of this recording, it's Friday, and we got a small bounce in the NASDAQ after about a week or so of a pretty brutal sell-off. When the US markets are looking a little topsy-turvy, I often think it's a good idea to look abroad. Today, we're going to be looking at Japan. If you're a value investor, once you hear Japanese stocks, I can understand some of the reluctance to listen any further. After all, the Japanese stock market literally went almost nowhere for about 35 years. Their market last peaked in 1989, and it did not go back to those peaks until February of 2024. I think Nintendo is interesting because as a patient investor, you won't have to wait nearly as long to see this investment thesis play out. There are several catalysts in 2025 as well as through the next 5 years that I think will make this company a stock to watch. Nintendo already has been outperforming the market in the short term. The company has been up about 20% year to date, which has greatly outperformed the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ here in the US. In terms of the global diversity of the company's business, about 77% of the company's sales come from outside Japan. This is important for us to keep in mind, given all the uncertainty around tariffs and changes to US regulations. A good thing about Nintendo is that since it has revenue streams all over the world, that might be able to buttress some of the fears in this area. Over the last 2 weeks, Nintendo stock had a bit of a pullback as investors began to price in whether or not some potential tariffs might hurt the company's earnings. A lot of this is still TBD, but I got interested in the company once I saw the fear in investors. I wonder if they were selling the stock too early. As always, the North Star for me and my investment process here at Accrued Interest is I really want to be involved in companies that are good businesses. Is Nintendo a good business? I am going to make the case that it is not only a good business, but it actually is becoming a better business, and it's going to be one that I'm going to be following up in future videos. Some investors have called Nintendo the Apple of the gaming industry. Nintendo is known for innovation. They do not make copycat products, and similar to Apple, they are heavily involved in both the hardware and the software side of their business. Historically, the video game business has been very cyclical. Every time a video game company would come out with a new console, that console would sell anywhere between 5 years to 10 years. And over the life of the console, they would sell more games. And then when a new console would come out, you would see another spike in sales and demand, and the cycle would repeat. We're coming up on about 8 years since Nintendo released the Nintendo Switch, which has been a massive hit. It really boomed in popularity during the pandemic, and it's been strong ever since. But even after 8 years, even Nintendo has to upgrade its hardware cycle. Over the past decade, Nintendo has been getting more and more of their sales from digital games. As of the latest earnings release, the company disclosed that they have about 129 million paying members who have spent money through the Nintendo Online Store within the past year. The video game industry over the past decade has mostly transitioned away from selling games in physical units, in physical CD or Blu-ray discs. At first, Nintendo was slow to this transition, preferring to stick with their cartridges, but quickly they have caught up. Back in fiscal year 2018, Nintendo was getting about 17% of the game software revenue from digital downloads. That number has steadily increased over the past 6 years, and last year, in fiscal year 2024, Nintendo got slightly over 50% of its revenue from digital sales for the first time ever. The catalyst that I think makes Nintendo particularly interesting to talk about right now is coming up in this quarter, sometime in either April or May. Nintendo is going to be launching the Switch 2. Already the demand is through the roof, and many analysts expect that this could have one of the biggest launches in all of video game history. But there's a big difference in this new piece of hardware that I think could be particularly strong for Nintendo's earnings. The Switch 2 is going to be the first Nintendo gaming console that's backwards compatible. That means that if you own a Switch 2, you're still going to be able to use both the cartridges and the online games that you use on your Switch 1. This is very important, in my opinion, for increasing the quality of Nintendo's earnings, because in the old system, where the games were only tied to one console, every time Nintendo would want to switch over to a new console, they would see a drop off in the game sales because they would effectively be starting back from a base of zero. With the Switch 2 allowing backward compatibility, I think that Nintendo will be able to smooth out its earnings, and this further incentivizes customers to upgrade to the new Switch and start buying new, more technologically advanced games for this new system. Nintendo is coming out swinging by having new releases that mostly conform with some of their biggest franchises. One thing that makes me particularly bullish is that Nintendo has said that they're going to be coming out on day one with a new entry in the Mario Kart franchise. Mario Kart, by far, is the strongest franchise Nintendo has. Since inception, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has sold over 67 million units. That is more than 20 million units than the number 2 title, Animal Crossing New Horizons. In future videos, we're going to explore how Nintendo is finding new ways to monetize their IP. A couple years ago, Nintendo had a monster hit, the #1 movie of the year when it came out, with the Super Mario Bros. Movie. The company has says they're going to be doing more sequels to Mario, as well as looking at other IPs such as The Legend of Zelda and other classic games. Taking a page out of the Disney playbook, Nintendo has been aggressively expanding in theme parks in both the United States and abroad. This year, we're seeing expansions to the Super Nintendo World in Orlando, Florida, and I expect more theme park announcements to come in the future years. So in the coming videos, I'd like you to stay tuned on my journey as I delve deeper into Nintendo. I'm going to try to estimate what is a normalized year for new Nintendo Switch sales. I'm also going to try to estimate how the digital gaming ramp can help the company's operating margins. And thirdly, we're going to try to see what expectations are currently baked into the stock price. Because I have a feeling that a lot of investors aren't really up to date on Nintendo, so a little extra research here could really go a long way. As always, thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and stay tuned for more updates on Nintendo and other companies.